Welcome to NCIX Tech Tips. Today we're going to be doing, I guess, kind of a two-tiered episode. So this has a couple of different topics that are both the topic today. First of all, we have the launch of the AMD Phenom 2X6 1100T processor. So this is their latest and greatest 6-core processor. It has 6 cores, okay? They're clocked at 3.3 gigahertz when you're running something that's very intensive on all 6 cores. Like say you're doing 3D rendering or 2D rendering for that matter, or you're running something that really takes advantage of all those cores, 3.3 gigahertz. However, if you're running something like a 3D game that only needs 3 cores or less, that T at the end stands for turbo. So that means it's actually going to turbo 3 of the cores up to 3.7 gigahertz if you're running lightly threaded applications. Now the other thing we're doing today is also we're going to showcase an AMD Vision Black system that we actually did a build guide on right here, featuring the Corsair 600T case. And actually we've got this system behind us running Unigine Heaven, the benchmark here in 1080p. Looks really, really great, and we just want to show you some of the stuff that an AMD Vision Black system can do. So we're just going to run through some of the tests that I ran, and I want to also talk a little bit about my 2 test platforms. So for my testing platform on the AMD side, I have the Crosshair 4 formula, I've got the Corsair H70, I've got some Dominator GT RAM, I have of course the 1100T AX850 CPU, so everything is running at a comparable setting to my Intel rig, which means I have the Dominator GTs at 1600 megahertz, same as on the Intel rig, and then I have both CPUs at bone stock settings, so that is 3.3/3.7 gigahertz, normal and turbo. And then on the Intel side, I'm actually running a Core i7-870, which is priced quite similarly to the 1100T, and I have that one running at its very, very stock settings, also with 4 gigs of RAM. And then in terms of graphics cards, I've got them both running with a Radeon 6870 graphics card, so that we have parity between the platforms when we're running any 3D benchmarks. So the first thing I went with was Vegas Pro. Now, not every editing software takes advantage of the same number of threads. So Vegas was an example that I found where the 870 actually outperformed the 1100T. So it was able to render this HD video of my cats in 4 minutes 13 seconds versus 5 minutes 11 seconds on the 1100T. So that was that was the only benchmark other than Windows Live Movie Maker where the 870 actually beat the Phenom 2X6. The next benchmark we had a look at is the ever-popular Cinebench. So this is a rendering benchmark, and in this particular application, the true 6-core design of the 1100T was actually slightly more powerful than the 4-core 8-thread design of the i7-870. So we were able to get a score of 5.88 points with the 1100T and 5.48 points with the 870 in this particular rendering benchmark. Now for our 3D tests, that is for our gaming tests, the 1100T system, despite using exactly the same graphics card as the 870 system, actually won in Heaven. Mind you, not by much. These were very, very close. So 35.5 frames per second versus 34.4. It actually edged out the 870 in Vantage, so 16,488 points. This is in performance mode versus 16,009 points. So these are running in the default settings for Vantage, okay, performance presets. In Heaven, we're running at 1080p, and I can actually double check the rest of the settings really quick right now, because I actually forget. So here you can see all of the settings we are using for Heaven, Direct 3D. We are not using anti-aliasing, and we are running at 1080p resolution. So we can go ahead and quit that. And then last but not least, Battlefield Bad Company 2. The 1100T system edged out the 870 by about 10%, little less than 10%. So 50.5 frames per second versus 46.9 frames per second. So in terms of gaming, based on our very small sample, I haven't actually had my system set up for very long here, we would give the edge to the 1100T. So in conclusion, First of all, don't forget to check out our build guide on our AMD Vision Black system. It's a great guide whether you're building a system similar to this or if you're building just a completely different system and you want some good steps to follow in order to build along. So please don't forget to check that out. And I also just wanted to give you guys a general conclusion about the AMD Vision Black platform. So as you can see on AMD's site, the reason they've developed their Vision series of tiers is that they want to really separate which hardware goes with which. So this really goes back to one of the episodes we did recently about hardware bottlenecking and how to design a PC that goes well with itself. So all of the parts are really well matched. So this is a Vision Black, which means we've gone with the highest end GPU, we've gone with the highest end CPU, and then we've gone with a premium motherboard for it. So if you follow those guidelines, you end up with a well-balanced system. So Vision Black is all about rendering, okay? You've got video encoding, it can do all of that good stuff, 3D gaming, that is what it is designed for. So if you don't have such demanding needs, you can always go with a lower end AMD Vision system, depending what you want to do. So check out the AMD website if you want some more details on that. So, in terms of comparing our two platforms today, they're priced fairly similarly, although AMD motherboards do usually end up a little bit less expensive than their Intel counterparts for similar feature sets. They both use dual-channel DDR3 RAM, so there's no advantage one way or the other there, and these CPUs actually cost very, very similar. So the one advantage you do get is that unlike the 875K, the 870 is not unlocked, which means it's a little bit more difficult to overclock. The 1100T is unlocked, so that means all you have to do is adjust the multiplier. You can squeeze a little bit of extra performance out of it that way. And actually, that was all the notes I had. Thank you for checking out our episode on NCIX Tech Tips today, and don't forget to subscribe.